Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes question and answer episode. Before I begin, I've got a few shout outs and thoughts. I will put a link to the questions over here, so if you want to skip the intro, I wouldn't do that though, but if you want to skip the intro, you can find each of the questions here. Excuse me. And that way, navigation for these episodes is a little bit easier. Questions will also be linked in the description, and I have gone back to all my previous Q&As and done that. So if you're new to the channel, if you're a new subscriber, welcome. Thank you so much for joining the channel and joining me. But it would always be a good idea to go back and at least skim those questions. You may find something that you're interested in already answered there. So before we get into the questions, I just want to cover a few things real quick. First, the Terrain Tutor, his channel, he has been doing a massive, monstrous Mantic building build. Mantic has produced a series of building sprues and shipped him a whole giant box of them for him to build. And he is building those to raffle them off for Help for Heroes, which is a military support charity. The raffle, I think, I'm within a day or two, I think, will be done sometime around the end of this month, July 31st. If you're interested in getting tickets for the raffle, there will be a link in the description here. You can also go over to his site and see links there. And there is a specific instruction regarding how to buy the ticket to actually enter the raffle. Basically, you're buying a charity ticket, and then you have to select Mel, the Terrain Tutor, as a contact to make sure he gets a record of it so he can enter you into the raffle. If you're confused about any of this, go to his channel, check it out. It's a impressive project. He just did a huge 24-hour marathon where he tried to finish all the build because he's behind schedule. Nice to see somebody else is running behind schedule. And that was really fun to watch, participate in, so you could check those out as well if you thought you might like to see how some of that crazy build went. I ended up falling asleep. I missed the last segment. Mistake. Don't try to do an all-nighter and then take a break and have a couple beers and read a book for a little bit. That's not a good recipe for staying up. That's not a good recipe. Wasn't. So anyway, check that out. Second, people may be wondering where I've been lately. I have been surviving the summer. I find the summer to be an incredibly challenging season for me for work because when you make your own schedule, it seems like you think your schedule is flexible, and I don't work very well with my workday getting chopped up into bits. My wife is home during the day because she's a teacher, so she's off school hours. So she, loving woman, I gave her my heart willingly and would do so again, but she likes to, touch base, check in, say things, and so that kind of fractures it a little bit. And then this month, this summer, I decided to try to grow a giant pumpkin. Yeah, and the time that took each day for the pumpkin, I called the pumpkin factor. That's how much time it was taking, and that was breaking up my day. The good news is the bad news. My pumpkin is dead. Squash vine borers came in and just hammered it. I thought I went out, did surgery on the stump, dug them all out, cleaned it, put some fungicide on it, I was drying it all out, I'm going to build a tent, and then I discovered, oh, that stem has them. Oh, that stem has them. Oh, that stem has them too. So, the giant pumpkin is dead, and it was only this big before the whole plant was considered lost, but I will be doing another one next year, and I learned a lot this year. I knew, it's just a learning year. Anyway, giant pumpkins. You're not here for giant pumpkins, but that's why I've been struggling a little. It's one of those factors, and in fact, I've been struggling enough to want to show you my note that has been above the computer for the last several weeks telling me, make this your priority. And so I put aside videos for a while. You're probably asking yourself, why is that number not, blurred out? It's because I'm embarrassed to show you that number. I missed that date, and then I revised it, and I missed that date again, and I realized that I have to stop and shoot some videos before the end of this month so you guys don't think I'm dead. So it's still my top priority. I'm close. I'm going to get those orders done, and then I want to start August fresh. Got a nice big ocean board project. Let's get to it. Let's. I'll take you along for the ride. So in any case, that's kind of what's been going on with me. I'm going to shoot a whole bunch of videos right now. I don't care what happens. They're going to get shot. And I will put a note here that says how many are in the can before I hit publish on this video, so you can see how many you can expect in the next few days. So wish me luck on that. Next, I just want to do a very quick reminder. I feel I'm a little hopped up. Very quick reminder. Always make sure, if you have questions, if you want to learn more, check out the comments to any of my videos. People are always posting great information there, products I didn't know, techniques I wasn't aware of, links to videos. Sometimes I'm answering questions there. You might have the same question. So don't forget to skim them and take a look. A lot of good stuff down there. And thank you to everybody who does comment. I really appreciate it. I think I have some of the best commenters on YouTube. And so I appreciate that, because you make my channel better. Lastly, I have made a decision. I tried to check in with my patrons. I put up a note. I'm part of Patreon. Put up a note 3 weeks ago. Didn't get any feedback on it, so no news is good news. But what I'm going to do is each month on my Patreon page, I write a monthly column. I let my patrons choose it. They're at a certain reward level. They choose the topic, and I write. You know me, I'm not very brief. So these are lengthy columns, and they will cover on whatever topics my patrons ask me to write on. And so last month was, why am I telling you all of this? Why? Because I'm going to make them public. So unless any of my patrons really freaks out about it, and I don't think they will, because they're like super awesome people, then this will allow you to come over and enjoy some of that content. Last month's article was on what I'm calling the Bragdon painting technique, and that is the new painting technique for the new rock casting that I'm doing. And I took the Bragdon description on his website, edited, and I cropped out all the pieces for the steps, and then I commented on them. How did I handle it? What are some of my concerns? What works well? I tried to give you a sense, you, collectively the you, a sense of what I've been working with on that process. So if that's something that's interesting to you, I will have that changed to a public post. And next month's column, I don't know what it is yet. I'll be asking my patrons, and when that goes up, usually around the first week of the month, you can go over and check that out as well. So if none of my patrons freak out, and you go over and you check out those, and I don't think they will. Like I said, they're really, but you go over and you check it out. Just make sure that you, in your little heart and your mind, thank the patrons for not only supporting me and giving me this impetus to make the columns, but also for being willing to share them with everyone. So enough about that. Let's get into the Q&As. Let's see. A lot of good ones this week. A lot of good ones this week. I checked. Last time I did this was like in April. Patience for my questionnaires, right? But what I do is I've got a good chunk. I'm going to split them up into 2 video segments, and you'll see the second one relatively shortly. So let's do the first Q&A here. This is Q&A number 10, I believe. And the first question is from Ryan. Ryan says, I am just getting into War Machine Hordes, and it drives me crazy, especially when watching battle reports on YouTube, to see great-looking tables and then bright control centers in the table. And he says like this, and he shows a picture. I'll put the picture here, and you can see the bright red control zone that somebody has tried to mark off for the gameplay. He says, further, are there any rubber silicone type materials, thinking like your bendable rivers? Actually, they're the roads. I don't do any bendable rivers, although you could paint them up like rivers, I guess. That could be cast, painted, flocked, but still be durable enough to roll up and throw in the gaming bag. I know you say not to fold the rivers. I know some people have done paper circles with terrain printed on them, but that is just not the same. I agree. I'm thinking of painting my Realm of Battle boards in a desert theme, and it might look good and add to the narrative if the control area of a drinking well that each side is fighting to control, I'm paraphrasing and I'm botching it, has let's say has an attractive control zone. So do I know of anything to make this feasible? before I spend more money than I should trying to make it work. All right, I've got two ideas. My first idea was you can get latex mold making materials, and in fact Woodland Scenic sells a little tub of this, and they sell it to you for making rock casts. You know, you make a rubber mold with it, you do lots of layers of latex, let them dry. You could use that to make paint on a control zone, build it up in some layers, and then paint and flock that. The nice thing about latex is that it holds paint really well. It is, you know, easy to use, relatively low cost. Smells like ammonia when you're using it, so if you have any ammonia allergies or something, it's not going to work. But once it's done, you will be able to fold that up and roll that up. Now, it's going to have, I think, some memory, so I might roll it maybe on like a paper towel tube, maybe, so you don't crease it, and then you should be able to put it down. In fact, you might roll it backwards, so that when you unroll it right, it's going to try to sit like this and curve towards the table, and then it might stay a little flatter. You might have to put it in a plastic bag or whatever to make sure the flock and stuff doesn't get damaged. That's my first go at it. My second go at it, I actually did a little research for you, Ryan. I thought, wouldn't it be great to have a transparent silicone sheet? Then whatever's underneath it is going to come through, maybe with just a hint of, you know, not perfectly clear, but then you don't have to worry about how you finish it. You could put it over anything, marsh, swamp, whatever, and it's always going to match. Took a look online. There are people who sell clear silicone sheets, not the cheapest, but affordable if you're only buying a small section, 1 foot by 2 feet, something like that. And I saw one that was semi-transparent, one that looked really clear. So Google search clear silicone sheet. I think you'll find quite a few people out there who are distributing them. They at first glance they look like larger shops, but it look like they'll sell them in square foot rolls. So that might be another option as well. So nice thing about clear silicone, you can throw it in your bag, crumple it up. It's always going to come out fine. It's not going to shrink or get what's the word I'm looking for? When you sit in the sun too long, you get discolored, you know, where plastic's so yellow or things like that. Should be resistant to that. And again, you can put it over anything you want, cut it to size. So check that out. Clear silicone sheets. That would be my recommendation. Let's see here. You know what? Because I already shot this twice, I'm going to do something weird. Okay. Actually, I only shot this once already. Not the whole thing. But I need a drink of water. That's a lot of gabbing, even for me. Martin writes, how do you create your base terrain module for your modular terrain? Pink foam I have purchased tends to have a slight curve towards the long sides of the panel. So he's talking about a 2x8 by 1.5 inch thick pink foam, which is at Home Depot, which is exactly what I buy. And I'm unsure if the curl is the result of the extrusion process or perhaps the way they are strapped for shipment. To create your modules, do you take modules from the center of the panel to get a nice flat section? Do you hot wire plane the pieces so that they sit flat? Perhaps you have a foam source that does panel sizes that are flat. So do I use a jig to cut them to standard dimensions? Okay, so let's see. First, my panels are curved. I don't know why. I think it's the extrusion process. I used to think it was strapping. Do I take modules from the center? No, I do not. I actually cut them and use as much of the material as possible. So the curve actually is the length of the board when I do my 20 by 10s. Do I hot wire plane them to get them straight? I do not. And do I have a foam source where I can get a panel size that provides a flat piece? I cannot. And in fact, I have in the past done a lot of looking about getting foam shipped to me. I had one company cut foam and ship it to me. It was destroyed. It was terrible. I should have asked for a refund, but whatever. So no. Do I use a jig to cut them? I do not. So what I do is I cut the panels on my hot wire table. I have a scratch-built hot wire table. I don't use the hot wire foam factory table only because it's a little small for an entire, I cut the panels in half, so I'm basically pushing a 43-inch piece through, and it's, 2 feet wide, and so it's a little big for the hot wire table, in my opinion. You probably could build an extension on it if you wanted to, though. But anyway, I have a table that I made. It's ugly, but it gets the job done. So I cut them. I just cut them as close as I can to the proper dimensions. Then I leave the curve. I use the curve as the top surface, and when I apply foam coat to it, the foam coat expands, and it actually overexpands. So instead of my boards looking like this, they actually end up looking a little bit like this at the end. Not all of them, but most of them. So if you saw, which I have struggled with for ages to try to fix, can I just say that? So my previous method for trying to fix them was to put weights on them, then melt the bottom with a torch to create a new sort of tension region, and then take the weights off, and hopefully it would come flat. Moderate success, depends on the flexing that was present, yada yada. What I do now, which I showed a little bit of in my previous video, if I can find it, I'll put a link up here, I can't help it, is I now put runners down the length of the board on the bottom, and I still do that sort of hyperflex away from the angle, and then the runners add tension to hold it flat. It's not science, it's tricky, but it has worked better. I thought the styrene edges would be strong enough to keep it from flexing. They're not even close. So anyway, that's how I'm correcting them now. I don't know if that's for everybody, but that's what I'm doing. I don't have a better suggestion on it, unless you wanted to actually edge them in wood, which sounds terribly laborious, so I wouldn't do that. All right, let's see here. Glenn writes, just got done. Can you hear that? Oh, come here. Say hi to the people. Oh, where's George Ben? Where's my little man Ben? Oh, all right. You stay there while I answer questions. Sometimes I walk around the house with him on my shoulder. He likes it. Oh, just got done watching your recent board overview video. I had a question come up in the viewing that is not so much directed at you, but the community of builders at large. And he says, lucky for me to be selected as the spokesperson. I will do my best. Rivers often seem to be represented as winding channels, when it seems to me in nature they contract and expand in width a lot, forming ponds and sandbars, all of that. Does that? Okay, George. Oh, George, I can't read when you're in the way. And he mashes all the keys, and then like weird things happen to the computer, and I don't know what the hell he did, and I can't fix it. Does that have to do with keeping the same dimensions across the modules, or is there another reason, perhaps a gaming reason, that I haven't thought of? Well, the main reason, I think, is that it ensures joins better if they're modular. That's the basic requirement, right? So if you're going to have them meet up, but you want to rearrange them, you want them to have a standard length, a width, I should say, across. All right, George, you're getting really distracting. Go, 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 go. Love you, but go. If you, George, if you have longer segments, however, then you do have room to vary them. And if you saw, of course they're not up now, but if you saw my older rivers, I did try to vary them when I did my cast rivers a little bit on the longer sections. A little tricky on the shorter ones. When I'm carving them in the foam, I have done more, width variations in the past than I've been doing lately, and it's a little tricky when you're using a hot wire, let's say your hot wire blade is like this, okay, as you're going through the foam, right, uniform width. Now, the only way you can change that is to narrow it by tilting it like this and then continuing in the same direction, all right? So normally, right, you would go around the corner like this, but if you tilt it and continue forward and then go around, right, you get a little narrowing and a wider. Still, I only have 20 inches to do, to get that effect, sometimes less if it's a bend, and I have to make sure the ends are matching. So it's not like, you got room to go all over the place, and I'm making them, for me, now this is just for me, I'm making them as wide as I can, so there's not a lot of shoreline to say expand it. So really all I can do is narrow it, and I can't narrow it a lot because there's just not time to get it back to the original dimensions before it reaches. So that's why I do it that way, and that's why I think most people do it that way, is the modularity and the relatively short lengths of those sections. If you were going to do a fixed river on a table and you've got 5 feet to run it, I would say add some variation. I think it's going to look much more realistic. But I would never say put a fixed river on your table. I just think it's a bad idea because you're going to want to change it at some point. My personal opinion, it's going to look better though fixed, but we make sacrifices. I hope that answered your question. I felt like I was spinning off for a second there. Tim asks, on May 11th, I posted a video titled New River Hill Chasm Boards Part 2. He asks, he has a few questions about how I pulled off the rivers. In the video, I mentioned that I'm able to use deeper pores with, and I use Mod Podge for the surface effect. So this is, I'll put a link to that here. That is the, now with the newer river design, right? I have a much deeper amount of water I can play with in them. And so this is what he's referring to. Let me scroll down here just a little bit. Am I right in guessing this is a two-part process where you pour a resin into the riverbed up to a certain level, then top with the Mod Podge? And I'll tell you what, we'll take a break right there and say no. It's actually a multi-step process. When you pour Envirotex or Clear Coat or any of these other two-part resins, if you go too deep, you'll get an exothermic reaction, a runaway heating, and it will continue to heat up so much that it will actually cause it to expand. It gets all warped and weird. So you can't pour, definitely not more than 1/4 inch. And I really would keep it under about 3/16 of an inch. It depends. So to get it to that level, it's actually 3 pours of Envirotex or Clear Coat, then the layer of Mod Podge. And I do push the Mod Podge around with a brush, but sometimes I use other things too. I've played with popsicle sticks. Sometimes I use popsicle sticks and I cut a flat edge. There's a variety of ways. You'll have to play with that. Is this standard transparent casting resin or using magic water or similar product? No, I am using the Envirotex. Similar, it's not Envirotex. I use Clear Coat. Everybody knows Envirotex, so that's what you refer to, but same material. It's a 2-part resin. If you use it, follow the directions carefully. Very specific directions on mixing, very specific directions on degassing it to get rid of the bubbles. Follow those directions very carefully. Do a test, all right? Then, am I tinting the resin to achieve the semi-transparent effect for the submerged rocks, or is that a surface painting effect? I tint it, and I tint it for each layer and change the tinting as I go. Typically, I start darker and work my way up. Sometimes I have played with that a little bit depending on my need as it's developing. I have a lot of people ask me about tinting. Maybe this is going to be its own question because I answer it all the time, so maybe I can just point people to this video. How do I tint resins? I tint them both with inks and with paint. Some people have asked about using washes. Do not use washes. You need a very high pigment count, all right? So you want something that's densely pigmented, and if you use inks, you're going to get a translucent look, and if you use paint, you're going to get a more opaque or murky look. And you can blend them, use both, whatever. I haven't found any problems with any paints that I've used, latex paints, craft paints, all of that. I use writing inks. I think I've mentioned them in the past. I think they are Hig Design. I'm not sure. In any case, be careful though. A little bit of pigment goes a long way. So what I do is I add a couple drops, mix it up, then I hold my popsicle stick up until it thins on top of the popsicle stick, and then I can see how much color is really there for the pour. Because if you look into the cup, it's going to look very, very darkly colored, but that's because you're looking, through a very deep amount of the resin. So, inks, paints, add a little to start, add more if you need. Check it on the stick. All right. Is there any surface protection over the Mod Podge that I can recommend? No, at least not that I've found. I have tried varnish over it, and I did not like the effect, mainly because a very thin coat doesn't actually protect it from, getting smushed in. That is why I shifted to Golden or Liquitex heavy-bodied gloss gel. It's got a more resistant finish, but each of the products can produce a different effect. And so for that board set, I wanted a very soft, undulating river. So the Mod Podge is needed for that because the heavy body gels, too much body, and I can't get that smooth look. So, sorry, no idea on protecting Mod Podge. If somebody out there knows, by all means, let me know. But I don't see how you could without actually filling it with a very thick, heavy layer on top of it, which is probably going to be challenging. Charlie asks, you said you used a retaining wall mold to make the walls for the 2 stone towers to the Unplugged GT. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link for that here. He said it looks fantastic. As always, oh, wait a minute, there's more of the question? Oh, no. Oh, did I cut off Charlie's? Luckily, I read this before. He says, good job on the buildings. How did I cut this off? Sorry, Charlie. And asks me where I got those molds. Actually, before I even read this, I was planning on doing one of my mini reviews of that mold. So, I will be doing a review of it, and I will explain a little bit about how I used it in an upcoming video. Might be 2 after this one. So they are Bragdon Enterprise molds. That's where I've been getting my rock molds. Stay tuned, actually, for the answer for Charlie's question, and I'll have that up on the site soon. On the site. Well, YouTube is a site, right? I hope I didn't go too fast. I feel like there's a lot to cover. Sometimes I get sped up, but sometimes when I see a 35-minute video, even from somebody I really, really like, I'm like, oh, it's 35 minutes. So trying to find some kind of happy medium. In any case, thank you for joining me, though. I do appreciate it, especially if you're new to the channel, if you're a subscriber. I'm always honored that people are subscribing to the channel as much as they have been. And, don't think that the break I just took is typical. Usually I'm a little bit more regularly spaced out, but this summer, this summer. Am I the only person in New England who looks forward to winter? I feel like that. But in any case, stay tuned. More videos to come, mini reviews. I have a list. I can't remember what's on the list besides mini reviews, but there's more. So hopefully you'll come back and join me then. And as always, I will be back soon with another TerranScapes video.